YouTube, you know it was coming. I said I was going to do it. Today's the day. Thunderbolts breakdown. I'm going to explain why I like this. I hate, you know, and you know what I hate? I'm going to preface. I'm going to say this first, okay? I'm going to say this first. When I kept telling you guys that I was not interested in what Marvel was doing, that I did not care about what these movies, what they're talking about, I'm not interested, blah, blah, blah. Everybody was on my dick. It's cause you don't read the comics. Like, if you read the comics, you'd be excited. How did you just don't, you don't get it. Don't care. And now, finally a movie comes that gets me excited about the universe. Gets me excited about the universe again. And suddenly, I only like it because I didn't read the comics. Make it make sense. Somebody just said it. Make it make sense. Make it make sense, bro. I've been the main one saying, you're like, yo, I don't really care about, Marvel. I don't really care about Marvel. After Endgame and shit like that. Like, the movies, like, there's certain movies I cared about, but as far as the universe, I didn't care about what was happening in the universe. As far as seeing all the movies that came out, like, watching every single movie that came out to make sure I didn't miss anything, that's connecting with the universe. I didn't care. I didn't watch the Ant-Man. I didn't watch, there's a lot of shit I didn't watch, bro. I'm not gonna lie. But this movie here, while we go through this breakdown, I'll tell you, like, what I really liked and why I really liked it and why, like, this was the one for me. This is the one that got me back into it.
Welcome back to New Rockstars.
What up, Eric?
Boss, and this is an in-depth breakdown of everything you missed in Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts as my favorite Marvel movie since Avengers.
Oh, shit. He's standing on what he said. Okay, wait, spoilers. Massive spoilers, okay? Spoilers are coming. Literally end of movie spoilers are coming. Also, I'm going to be talking about shit, like, I'm telling y'all right now, like, it's going to be like that. So, all right? There's going to be spoilers. Spoilers.
Let's go!
Now, chat. If the movie had just been titled that, I might have been like, nah, I'm good on this. I'm good on this. I wouldn't have given it a chance. I'm be honest. I would not have given it a chance. I really wouldn't have, bro. I really wouldn't have. Which I feel like that's a reason why that asterisk was there.
Endgame. I've now seen it 4 times, and I've combed through every scene and found so many interesting details, Easter eggs, connections, and visual themes that collectively make this movie really great, and I am pumped to share with you what I found. And while I'm so grateful that you watch these New Rockstars videos, really the best way to support what we do here is to grab something from our merch store, nerdriot.shop, like one of our Thunderbolts designs, the opening Marvel Studios title card.
I wonder if their breakdowns get copyrighted because they use like so much scene, but it's scenes from the trailer. I don't know. Sometimes they be using like screenshots from the movie though, which I don't think you can get copyrighted for.
Jumps right into the flashing comic book images on the surfaces of the rotating Marvel letters as usual, but quickly they are overtaken by shadow, which also silences the sounds of Michael Giacchino's Marvel Studios theme until we're left in silence with a monochromatic dark version of the studio logo, visually foreshadowing the threat the Void will inflict in this story. But before we even get
They already dropping the whole scenes on the damn Twitter. I'm not gonna lie, bro. Just take her out the thing, bro. We already know. Y'all already dropped the new event, like the spoiler for the new Avengers. Just take her out the damn thing. Please, man. She ruining the picture. She ruining the damn picture.
To that, if you look closely, the flashing comic images that we see that typically show Captain America, Iron Man, and others now show only Sentry Comics. From a number of issues since its comic debut in 2000, there's the short-haired Ryan Topper Sentry from the recent Jason Lou series, which ended in May 2024. I think actually this is the most recent.
Did you read that one?
Comics released by Marvel Comics.
Did you read that one, you poser?
Released. There's the retro Golden Age design of Sentry from the 2009.
What about this one, you poser? Did you read that one?
Which explores Sentry in an alternate universe. There's this image image of one of the times Bob Reynolds' Sentry battles the Void, and most of the other images show the best known
I feel like people
Bob
just be lying, bro.
Reynolds version of Sentry from the past 25 years. And we see the bottom of this
Shout out to
page
you.
from 2006's Sentry number 5 by Paul Jenkins, art by John Romita Jr. The panel where Dr. Worth tells Robert, "You're not going to shoot me, Robert. You're not going to hurt anyone because secretly you want to do good. Give me the gun." And then Bob rips himself into a Sentry and Void form as he screams, "You're tearing me apart!" So Sentry was created in September 2000 by Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee, who wanted to create Marvel's Superman, but not in terms of values, rather just power set. And they chose to introduce him in an interesting way as a man struggling with addiction and mental health who didn't even realize he had superpowers. Rick Veitch, who co-developed the character, had the idea to market his introduction.
Tinky Winky with the 5 fucking gifted mod. Thank you, Tinky Winky. I appreciate you, man.
As a meta
Or girl. Or them they. my guy. Or my girl. Or my them.
figure who had supposedly been part of Marvel's comics history from the beginning, from the 1940s golden age, and then existed in all the eras through the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby Silver Age due to some
Spider-Man still ain't doing shit, by the way.
cataclysmic event. Everyone in the universe forgot about Sentry's existence, including Bob himself. So he suddenly flashes back to memories of being a superhero named Sentry who had taken a super soldier serum 1,000 times more potent than the one given to Steve Rogers that gave him the power of 1 million exploding suns. He could manipulate reality, use telepathy, fly, go toe-to-toe with pretty much every Marvel character, including Hulk,
Carl with the 5, get him up. Boy, I appreciate you.
Galactus's Herald Terrax, Doctor Doom. Spider-Man recalls that Sentry fought Galactus to a stalemate, and then most famous
What? What the fuck? What the fuck?
Terrax, Doctor Doom. Spider-Man recalls that single character, including Hulk, Galactus's Herald Terrax, Doctor Doom. Spider-Man recalls that Sentry fought Galactus to a stalemate, and then most famously, he rips Ares in half. Sentry also shares his consciousness with a dark malevolent entity called the Void. So this movie reinserting Sentry's comics history in place of the normal comic images on the studio logo is a reference to this universe retcon that happened in the comics. The idea in the comics is that Sentry is supposed to have existed in our universe since the beginning. It's not that his watchtower gets built on top.
I don't like this video. Change it now, boy. First time message, by the way.
Of Avengers Tower. It's the opposite. Avengers Tower got constructed over the site the Watchtower was, and just no one knew it was there. And I just like that the opening seconds of the movie pay tribute to the way Sentry was introduced in the comics. Now, the Void has a similar, supposedly ancient origin, speculated to be a separate entity that then latched on to Bob when he became Sentry, with roots maybe as far back as the Old Testament, like part of the plagues of Egypt. But part of Bob's struggle with the Void is that he's never quite sure if the Void is
See, and that's why there's a difference between comics and movies, because this is a lot of background information that if we would have put this shit in a movie, I'm not gonna lie, I would have been bored, because there was they went through the background, I think, of all the characters at a certain moment, because bro was like touching people's hands and then like you could see their backstories or stuff like that. And I'm not gonna lie, seeing like all, it's like, if it was just all of that, bro, it just gets too much. Like the pacing would just be so fucking dull.
is really just a symptom of his own shame or not. This movie asks the question,
That's why I'd be like, people don't know what they want. Like, just sit your ass down in a seat and watch. Like, you swear you want all the comics to be in a movie. No, you do not, bro. No, you do not.
Darkness we all feel come from someplace real outside of ourselves, something that was always there before we were broken enough to feel it, making it like a cosmic shadow demon that we have to fear? Or is it an inner pain that comes from our own experiences, something we all create together, and therefore something we can unite around to get through together? And that void
Now,
is
if it was a TV show, okay, I get it. You can literally go into depth with a lot of shit in the TV show, because TV shows just be dragging. They could drag shit. Like, they could just do that. That's why I hate Netflix shows. Oh my God. Shit that could be wrapped up in really like 3 episodes, they be dragging that shit to 8.
actually where we open, with Yelena Belova, Florence Pugh, who returns from the 2021 Black Widow film and the Disney Plus Hawkeye series, still mourning her sister figure, Natasha Romanoff, and now working in special ops for Val. We see her tight in close-up.
I will say one thing. They kind of hyped, like, or I wouldn't say hype, but they put a lot of like clips out of this scene and the background of like background scenes of them doing this. I thought it was going to be a bigger moment, but like it literally is just the scene in the trailer and then it goes to the next scene. That was literally it.
as she closes her eyes, meditating, as her voiceover says, "There's something wrong with me, an emptiness. I thought it started when my sister died. Now it feels like something bigger, just a void." So right away, Yelena references the void that she will be battling in this movie. And she questions what was caused by her grief over Natasha.
I meant to hit hooray because like the void, and it was like I hit the wrong button. No, that's my fault.
Or if it was something bigger that was always there. Yelena sits atop the second tallest building in the world, Merdeka 118 in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. They actually had Florence Pugh on top of this building and had her leap off the edge with support wires, but they did swap in a stunt performer for the parachute base jump. This shot of Yelena—
What? Come on, bruh. You gotta stand on business and really do that, though. Bruh, Tom Cruise would never really do that shit. Tom Cruise really about that shit, bro. Like,
Merdeka 118 in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. They actually had Florence Pugh on top of this building and had her leap off the edge with support wires, but they did swap.
This scene was cool though. Like to see it in IMAX, and it's just like but like, damn, I thought it was gonna be more. I thought it was gonna be more to it.
In a stunt performer for the parachute base jump. This shot of Yelena taking this kind of leap is significant in a lot of ways.
She mentioned TC though. Where? Link it to me. Link it to me. I need to see it ASAP. Thank you for the sub.
Underscores the dark thought spiral Yelena is going through, because at first, if you haven't seen the trailer, you don't know why she's jumping off a building or if she even has a parachute. Also, it recalls Natasha's deadly leap from the cliff on Vormir in Avengers Endgame.
John Walker used to piss.
Hey.
Yeah, this from like some show. I didn't watch any shows.
Hey, come on.
Wait, AMC already spoiling when you try to book tickets? Really? They changed the name already everywhere? What the heck?
One more.
A girl? Come on, bro. I'm sick of this fucking shit. What am I looking at? And why?
It wasn't me.
I knew I fucked with this nigga. Yo, simply the best with the 5 get that. I appreciate you, bro. I appreciate you. I knew I fucked with him, bro. Fuck that guy. I don't even know what he did. Fuck him. You're from a TV show. You clearly didn't matter.
Game, and it puts Florence Pugh through a real practical jump that she—
Wait, hold on. She mentioned TC here.
Florence, I'm gonna start with you because while I know that this movie is an ensemble, it did feel like we're telling the story through your eyes. So when you get the call that you're #1 on the call sheet in the Marvel movie, what are we thinking?
Don't care. Where's the Tom Cruise talk? Where is Tom Cruise in the interview? Right? Fuck. One of the best MCU films I've ever seen, and ever seen is kind of crazy. Yo, hello? Where we at? Come on.
What's going through our head?
Hugely grateful.
Yeah.
I'm so Black feels like things.
Stunt right off the building. I wonder, because a lot of people would have said, enter stuntman. It's cool. But why, David's like, yeah.
I would have said that.
You would have said that. But why was that so important for you to say, nah. This is something I gotta do?
Well, I like being involved in the physical stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, and sometimes
It's so weird hearing her fucking talk. Like, I'm so used to her having a deeper voice and shit.
there are things that are just far too dangerous that the stunties are like, no.
It almost sounds like this is her fake voice. What the fuck?
We're gonna do that, and no matter how much training you do, it just looks better when they do it. So I appreciate that. Like, there could have obviously been a very talented person do that stunt for me, and it would have still looked fantastic. I just really, first of all, I love heights, and that just seemed like such an amazing challenge.
I just saw a picture of Tom Cruise. Where am I tripping? Could have sworn that's what made me rewind.
Challenge.
Where's the picture?
Said no one ever.
I love heights, and it felt like an amazing challenge, and just the fact that I was going to be able to do it in the safest possible way with the most fantastic stunt team, and I got to do it in a Marvel movie, and it was going to be filmed, that was documented forever, and then I could show people.
It looked incredible.
I did that. What I mean,
when you saw it, were you like,
do that?
Holy! Like, were you so hyped because it looked bad?
It was a mental process. We did it for 2 days. We did 1 day of rehearsals, and then the second day was the shoot.
Yo, hello?
issue with everybody there. We have to do all of them. So this is now, oh, lightning. So by the time I was actually able to...
You've just talked me out of everything.
Having a coffee.
David Harbour, you have a very right it's their own boot camp.
There's a couple guys who like
Bro, how is
stunties are like, no, we're gonna do that.
This is something I gotta done.
cool name.
And we got introduced.
I knew I seen it. I knew I seen it. I knew I seen the picture, bruh. I knew it.
Can't call ourselves that.
Thank God.
The Thunderbolts. It's a cool name.
And we got introduced to you doing that kind of Tom Cruise type of
Yes.
stunt right off the building. I wonder, because a lot of people would have said, enter stuntman. It's cool. But
Are you fucking serious? That's the only time Tom Cruise comes up? I watched all of that. And she didn't even say Tom Cruise. The interviewer did. Respect to the interviewer. You get a thumbs up. You get a thumbs up. You a real one. Nah, I gotta see what he thinks. Nah.
It's at 472.
Nah, I don't know who this is. Shout out to him.
He actually did. And it feels like a bit of redemption for the character, considering the most maligned moment for many people of Black Widow was a very VFX shot of her doing a very cringy jump.
So ass, bro. This is when it really was like, yo. I was with Danielle when I seen it. I was like, yo, we're good, bro. I'm not gonna lie. We not seeing no more of these movies. we're not seeing no more of these movies because she already checked out because she don't know none of this. Like, she really don't know none of this Marvel shit. So it's like, bro.
This jump is awesome. Yelena lands atop another building and takes down a guard in an Ox hat, OXE. This is the logo of Val's holding company, Ox Group. OXE was mentioned in recent comics. 2023's Thunderbolts Volume 5, Number 1 has a secretive group founded by a version of Valentina Allegra. 23's Thunderbolts Volume...
Is that, what's his name? From Marvel Rivals that be kicking the fuck out niggas and punching them and shit? Oh, shit.
5, Number 1 has a secretive group founded by a version of Valentina.
Oh, Shang-Chi. I thought Iron Fist. I thought it was Iron Fist.
Allegra de Fontaine that gives Bucky intel that he brings to Val to form a new Thunderbolts team. Beyond that, there's no real history to OXC in the comics, and the company might have just been created for this movie.
He got the same fit.
Of Oscorp,
He's literally wearing the same outfit.
Who plays Val's role as a director of the Thunderbolts in the Dark Reign era.
I didn't even say it by Asian or like the ethnicity. I said it by fit. The fit check.
The comics, which started around 2009, which then leads to Dark Avengers. Norman Osborn and Oscorp, of course, are Sony properties as they're in the Spider-Man orbit. Yelena fights her way through this building as director Jake Schreier stays in a smooth overhead long take, showing Yelena gracefully and deadly moving down this hall, creating the stunning visual of long shadows, which is another visual
like the
Void. How it flattens victims
Hooray!
into long shadows just like this.
This is Thunderbolts, so I don't know why I'm doing it on the Void.
Whether or not Yelena realizes it, she is fighting her own void. Among Yelena's moves is the firing of her electrified Widow's Bite, the wrist projectile she inherited from Black Widow Natasha, and something we saw her use in Hawkeye. Now, the music we are hearing in this sequence and throughout the film was composed
She was in Hawkeye too? Yeah.
by Sun Lux, the amazing band and composer group who composed the score for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Bomb
and it just
movie.
plays so well against a group of characters who are going through a similar journey of being sucked into their own personal everything bagels. We realize that Yelena's opening narration is actually her talking to a bound guard from the Ox Group in this lab as she tries to access this intersection with tubes of serum that she needs to destroy under orders from Val. Our colleague Matt Pat, formerly of Game Theorist and Film Theorist, who I actually met at the Thunderbolts premiere, tweeted that this taped guard might have been him, but he was joking. This actor is credited as Matt Einhorn. He does share the first name though. Get Matt Pat in the MCU. He was great in Five Nights at Freddy's. Yelena finds a guinea pig in this maze, and I wonder if this guinea pig might have been given any versions of the serum Bob received. The maze that the guinea pig has to navigate mirrors the maze of shame rooms that they will have to navigate to the center of Bob's mind in the final act. Now, in the background on the far end of this room are the two frozen shadows of the first Ox Group text that Bob/Sentry voided. They're just still there, floating behind Yelena in a lot of these opening shots. And I like how she's just so dead inside and so focused on the mission that she doesn't even comment on the spooky shit that clearly went down here. But it tells us that Bob and Project Sentry were a recent
Expedition is going to be posted tomorrow. I'm finishing the finale tonight. Everything is gonna be on YouTube tomorrow. I've been editing while I've been playing it over the weekend.
Breakthrough. And now that we've seen the movie, do these two guys ever get unvoided when the crisis gets resolved at the end of the movie? Do they wake up on a floor that's been blown up by Elena? Does Val's goon Holt wake up unvoided on a crashed helicopter or in the midair spot the moment he was voided? We're getting to some unblip logic here.
Just let him die.
Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video.
W bag.
Don't understand what happened here. That Project Sentry could bring about the end of the world. This scientist gets his face shot off in the struggle, and Yelena walks off with a guinea pig as the floor this lab was on explodes. And according to behind the scenes material, this movie's production actually set off practical charges for this shot.
We shot Florence jumping off of that building in the morning and then went to another street and just blew up an entire floor of a building in the afternoon.
We move on to Washington, D.C.,
shit.
where if you look closely, you can see the Capitol building and the Washington Monument has scaffolding around it to repair some damage, which is a fun little detail referencing the recent Red Hulk battle in Captain America Brave New World, which included Red Hulk leaping after Sam Wilson from the White House and scraping part of the Washington Monument. Washington Monument. Between this and Spider-Man Homecoming.
Just up for the first time. I appreciate you. Thank you for the sub, bro.
Because of this.
I don't really want to celebrate something that was built by slaves.
Bucky Barnes is now an elected congressman. Now, in Captain America Brave New World, he mentioned having a fundraiser to go to, and we found out that he was a newly elected congressman. Here, reporters talked to him about the day's hearing, and he mentions his constituents in Brooklyn. Bucky and Steve grew up in Brooklyn. Depending on how the districts are divided in the MCU, Bucky could be representing the 8th district, which in our reality is Hakeem Jeffries' district, the House Minority Leader. Really, all the Brooklyn districts lean heavily Democratic, and I would just be curious to know what kind of campaign Bucky ran. Because unlike Senate seats, which can be appointed by a state's governor, House seats are left empty until a general election or a special election happens to fill them. So Bucky definitely won an election. He could have run uncontested, but people had to mark his name.
He be getting deep, and like he's talking about the hypothetical politics in which Bucky would have this is insane.
On a ballot, and I just think that's awesome.
Solid B+.
Because Bucky has never given any indication as recently as the Falcon and the Winter Soldier that he would ever want to seek public office. But
this should be his slogan. When you need an arm to pull you up from the depths, get one that's metal. All right, Bucky Barnes.
Since the Sokovia Accords have been repealed according to episode 8 of She-Hulk, and of course, since Bucky Barnes is a veteran who fought alongside the Avengers in the Battle of Earth, I'm assuming there were some local leaders in Bucky's hometown neighborhood who urged him to run.
Bruh, you're hating. That shit hit.
Also played Daily Planet editor Perry White.
Okay, what would you say? What was your slogan? Armed and dangerous. Yeah, don't fucking talk to me about my shit, bro.
In DC Studios.
Armed and dangerous would be your slogan.
Superman this summer plays in this movie Congressman Gary, the chairman on this hearing on articles of impeachment against Val, who we learn in Black Panther Wakanda Forever is the director of the CIA in the MCU. Val corrects Congressman Gary on the pronunciation of her name. It's not Fontaine, but DeFontaine, and mentions the Secretary of Defense as Anderson. So keeping track, the U.S. Secretary of State in the MCU is played by Toby Ziegler actor Richard Schiff, and the Secretary of Defense is this guy, Anderson. And we have two ex-presidents that we know of.
You should show us how you would approach Tim Cruise if he notices you. So like if he says, yo, aren't you that black guy named ImDontai?
Why would he say that? Why would he say it like that?
Harrison Ford, and recently James Ritson, played by Dermot Mulroney. Val's signature hair stripe color is now silver, and she wears a white suit, white being the historic suffragette color worn by modern-day feminist politicians. Many have pointed out the visual similarity between her look and Tulsi Gabbard during her confirmation hearings in early 2025, but this scene was shot well before Gabbard was nominated to be part of Trump's administration, or before anyone knew how the 2024 election was going to play out. Gary says that before serving as the CIA director, Val chaired Ox Group, which answers some questions about why she recruited John Walker in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier and recruited Yelena as a Black Widow, but it does have us wondering about her marriage with Everett Ross, who's been part of the CIA. Like, was it a CIA connection? Did he know what group she was involved with? Did he know? Val testifies, right now there are several rogue nations with technologies that exceed our own. She's likely referring to Wakanda and potentially also Tlaloc Khan, because in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, she was definitely after the vibranium tech of those two kingdoms. Val also says, and you'll recall that our last president turned into a bright red superhuman monster who nearly destroyed the city. Of course, referring to the events of Captain America Brave New World when President Thaddeus Ross turned into the Red Hulk after years of manipulated blood treatments at the hands of Samuel Stearns, the leader. Val says the Avengers are not walking through that door, which Bucky reacts to as he literally just walked through this door. He too is going to have a personal arc in this movie to formally step into the role of becoming an Avenger. Val says the onus is on me, on us, the American government, to shield its citizens. And she emphasizes the word shield, I think, to also imply that there once was a government organization called SHIELD that aimed to do exactly this. But But since S.H.I.E.L.D. fell due to Hydra corruption and Captain America the Winter Soldier, there really has been no government agency doing
That's when I was like, damn, like, there's really no Avengers, bro. Like, niggas is, you know, out of work.
quite that function on the ground on this planet.
Out of
Val
commission.
says she doesn't mind at all that Congress pokes around Ox and awkwardly sips her water, and cut to shit as Val and her assistant Mel, Geraldine Viswanathan, rush to clear out the Ox facility. Val tells Mel, get rid of any hanging chads that could get me impeached or land me in prison. The hanging chads is a reference to the 2000 presidential election and recount in Florida, where hanging chads became a media buzz term as the punched out pieces of ballots that were alleged to result in counting errors that assigned some votes for Al Gore to Pat Buchanan and ended up giving George W. Bush the state that tipped the election. Red Guardian Alexei Shostakov, David Harbour, watches on TV footage an old Soviet parade. I'm a bit of a history nerd, and I actually figured out exactly what footage they used for this.
Jesus Christ, that's insane. That is insane.
It was a May 1st, 1981 Labor Day parade or May Day parade in Moscow's Red Square, and that's Prime Minister Leonid Brezhnev Alexei is waving behind. They inserted a young, thinner Red Guardian in this actual historical footage, Forrest Gump style, and I love it. Alexei mutters, Brezhnev, get out of my way. Now, I recapped all of these characters and their numerous past MCU appearances in this recap video, but we last saw Red Guardian in the Black Widow film, where we learned he was a Soviet counterpart to Captain America in the 1980s, who then became a spy in the 1990s as part of a fake family living in Ohio with Melina, Natasha, and Yelena. And when they were exposed, they had to flee to Cuba, where the family was split up. Natasha and Yelena went to the Red Room training under Ivan Dreykov, and Alexei, years later, actually ended up in prison in Siberia until adult Natasha and Yelena busted him out.
Move your ass, super soldier.
And after helping them bring down the floating Red Room base, he now, several years later, works for a limousine driving service in the DC area, or really on the border of Baltimore. Yelena passes that red limo and reads the slogan, Red Guardian Limo Service, protecting you from boring evening. And after thinking Yelena is a pushy DoorDash delivery person, he invites her in. And in Alexei's dumpy home, we can actually see a poster labeled Red Guardian in Cyrillic letters behind him in the doorway. We see various posters for motorcycles, which just sets up his love of Bucky's entrance later.
It's a Winter Soldier. That guy is so cool.
We see various pro-Russia art pieces on the refrigerator. We see past due bills, and we just see old Red Guardian.
I wonder when he actually gonna break down the movie. What are you talking about? He is, dude. Yo, X-D-Lo, thank you for the resubscription. I appreciate you.
Propaganda prints, like one behind Yelena of him using a hammer to break a chain on an anvil, which is just some classic Soviet imagery. And then we see another poster of Red Guardian posed with a woman who we never really get identified. But it
Now, he do be getting into some stuff that's like, it's just like, he just like goes on a spiel, where he just talks about like the most random thing. Like, we did not need to know what was on that TV. We really didn't need to know what was on that TV, bro.
It looks like some media event or movie or video game that they were trying to promote. Alexei says he moved to DC, and Yelena asks if
What do you
it's
mean
technically
ironic?
Baltimore. He says that Baltimore starts one block over. Hey, Alexei lives in the same city as Isaiah Bradley, and I think they should hang out. They'd get along great. Alexei observes that the light inside Yelena is dim, even by Eastern European standards. And Yelena says she feels lost and empty, but Alexei tells her that her sister Natasha understood that meant to pursue a higher calling. Yelena finds a framed photo of her youth soccer team, the Chesapeake Valley Thunderbolts, which is where they will get the team name of Thunderbolts in this movie. Apparently, this team lost every game, and we learned that there was one girl who pooped in the middle of the game. Actually, director Jake Schreier said that they really wanted to shoot that as the jokey post-credit scene as a handheld video that was shot by Alexei from the bleachers, but they realized that since it would have been in the early 90s in Ohio, Alexei would have just been using his really well-developed American accent, and it would have just sounded like David Harbour and wouldn't have been as funny when he yelled. Yelena calls Val about a more public-facing assignment, and Val gives her one last covert job: stop Ava Starr, Ghost, Hannah John Kamen, from robbing the Ox Vault buried a mile deep in the desert in Utah. Since we last saw Ava Starr and Ant-Man the Wasp, Janet Van Dyne gave her the quantum healing particles, healing her chaotic phase shifting so that she now has greater control over it and
Yeah, I don't even remember that.
doesn't have to live in Bill Foster's energy chambers that keep her from disintegrating. Inside this base, Yelena finds a bunch of crates dragged out into this incinerator floor, including some paperwork on Project Sentry. We see 2 pages on the right showing various alternatives of the Sentry S logo. On the right, we see 12 blank heads with different haircuts, and above that, 12 heads with different colors of hair beneath a bar graph displaying various focus group testing survey results, as Val and her team have clearly been workshopping the best look for a perfect Avenger hero. On the left, we see yellow wardrobe designs of the costume that they'll settle on for Sentry. And
what's up,
over
Money
on
Game?
the dark blueprint, we see the words the Watchtower, which in the comics is Sentry's headquarters, and in this movie, the name of the building Val was planning on renovating Avengers Tower into. Before Yelena can read these, she's shot at by John Walker, Wyatt Russell. They fight, and John throws Yelena pretty far because he did take the super soldier serum in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. While he did have to give up the Captain America shield, he has since acquired a new shield, which you can see is super scratched up, implying a number of vicious missions since we last saw him. Taskmaster, Antonia Dreykov, played by Olga Kurylenko.
Wait, so in the show when he killed that dude, they were like, never mind, bro, like you not the one. And he just kind of did his own thing.
Attacks John, and Ava attacks Antonia. So we get a full circle of 4 targets trying to kill each other, like, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander. And it's pretty clever how Val structured it so that each killer would be most effective over their target's weakness. Like Ghost targets Taskmaster because although Taskmaster can replicate any attack move, Ghost would be able to phase through any surface and try to surprise her. Taskmaster is aimed at John because while John is juiced up with super soldier serum, if he were to face someone with parallel combat moves, he probably would get easily confused and flustered. John targets Yelena because Yelena is smallest and likely most vulnerable to John's relentless strength, and Yelena targets Ghost because while Ghost can phase shift, Yelena is most subtle and agile and probably has the best chance catching her before she would phase. Olga gets one line as Taskmaster in this movie. When she strikes John, she retracts her mask to tell Yelena, "I'm not here for you." Ghost phases into the fight and phases through John's body to punch Taskmaster. Yelena fires her Widow's Bite at Ghost, but Ghost phases away so that the probe zips right through where she once stood and hits John behind her. Yelena pounces on Ghost, but Ghost fades away from under her, so Yelena just hits the ground. This is all just really fun to see, this scramble. And the fight bumps into a crate containing what we later learn is Bob, activating it to open. I think one of my favorite moves from this fight shows the exact target chain in a single shot, following a knife. Yelena flings the knife at Ghost. Ghost lets a knife go through where she once stood, but then phases back in to catch it behind her, then flings that knife at Taskmaster, who deflects it off of her shield directly at John, who catches it, and then stabs the knife back down to Yelena, who can only hold him up.
Oh, that's hard.
Off by using the Widow's Bite to electrify his stronger arms. Ghost and
See, that's a breakdown. That's an Easter egg. That's hard. I like that.
Duel. And I love how you can see Taskmaster perfectly mirroring each of Ava's strikes until Ava finally figures it out and phases to Antonia's blind spot, and blam, R.I.P. Taskmaster. You can see a single trickle of blood going down her mask. This is why trailers of this movie.
What did she do to piss them niggas off? Why did she die? This shit is so hard. Look at Bucky, my nigga. Look at Yelena, bruh. Fire. Holy shit.
R.I.P. Taskmaster.
I love that shot so much.
Trickle of blood going down her mask. This is why trailers of this movie hardly show Taskmaster, aside from a very clearly VFX shot of the group in Avengers Tower, which Taskmaster painted in that they didn't even bother to paint in for later trailers that they released. Yo. So Bob, Lewis Pullman, who also played the pilot Bob in Top Gun Maverick, stumbles out from behind a crate vomiting. He introduces himself.
Who are you?
I'm Bob.
Bob can't remember how he got in here and seems to have a completely wiped memory, similar to how we first meet Bob Reynolds as having memory issues in the comics. We cut from this scene to a charity event for the First Responders Family Fund, hosted by Val, themed around the Avengers from the Battle of New York. We see banners reading, "Honoring our heroes," with Iron Man and his Mark 7 armor from that battle.
The OG Avengers, dude. But it's like watching this makes you, all it does is really makes you appreciate them more, bro. It makes you appreciate them more. You can't watch it like, they never replaced them. Obviously, bro. They say it in the movie. Like, they like, yo, nigga, I can't even fly. Yo, I can't even fly, bro. What, we just gonna like shoot and shit?
And Captain America Steve Rogers, and I think Hawkeye.
Damn, bro. That's why it's like, and especially after watching this movie, I actually like the characters.
If
And
Dontai wanted to break down a movie, shit might be the same length as the goddamn movie.
I actually like the characters, and I'm really wondering what the fuck are they gonna do, and like how the fuck they gonna figure this out and be the new Avengers against a crazy ass threat. Because you can't just talk and hug your way out of the next one, bro. Okay.
Probably the other 3 Avengers who were part of that. And we see on display Loki's scepter, which would no longer contain the Mind Stone and was recovered from Hydra after Von Strucker extracted the stone. And the Avengers did recover it in that opening battle from Age of Ultron.
I was thinking like Sentry, like, because they still got him there. So, but in order to be him, he has to channel that like dark side.
We also see some Chitauri guns, and Val also shows off a pair of Chitauri handcuffs, which she says came with the new property, meaning these were also left behind when Happy Hogan supposedly moved everything out of the tower in Spider-Man Homecoming. Like, he got Thor's magic belt, but did not get the Chitauri handcuffs. Now, I thought these might be the cuffs that Loki was locked into when he was arrested at the end of the 2012 Avengers movie, and when we revisited this scene in Avengers Endgame and in the Loki pilot episode. We can also see the big
that scene is so
A
funny
from the word Stark when the tower was first Stark Tower, the A that was left standing at the end of that battle.
What's your favorite Marvel movie? Bro, my favorite Marvel movie is Infinity War. That's my favorite one.
To inspire the tower to become
the one where Thanos wins. That is my shit. I love everything about it. That's how you build up the villain. And that's how you make the payoff so much better in that second one. Endgame. Legendary. Damn, bro. What a moment, bro.
Avengers Tower. Congressman Bucky chats with Mel facing that big A, and they talk about Kierkegaard, how the Danish philosopher said that life can only be understood backwards, which is true. And the full quote is, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. And it applies to what these characters will have to face going through their personal voids, facing their
Civil War was
dark
fire.
memories by looking back upon them. Bucky proves that he does read Kierkegaard, saying he did believe it was up to individuals to create values. Back in the vault, Bob tries to run out the door, but the blast door slams down. Director Jake Schreier.
I just love the reason why I love Infinity War so much is just because, like, I wasn't expecting that. All their movies, they win. That's the formula. They win at the end, and then we see the next one. They win at the end, then you see the next one. They win at the end, and then you see the next one. So this one, I'm like, oh shit, Thor's here. Okay, bet that this shit finna be crazy. It's gonna be a good ass fight, but damn, they about to beat him, and then you see what happens next. But then it's like this nigga he did it. They're dying. They're gone. And then he's walking out and sitting down and smiling, and then we're going to credits. The theater's quiet because we don't know what the fuck just happened. We're all just like, what? That moment is a moment I will never forget, being in that theater, and it was dead quiet in the theater. We was just like, everyone was just like, what just happened? What the fuck?
Schreier directed the series Beef on Netflix, and
so that's why that's my favorite one.
Moment with the mansion panic room door that we saw in that finale episode of that season.
Oh my God, I remember this.
As they try to figure out who Bob is, John gets quickly annoyed at how many times Bob says Bob. And actually, if you notice from this point on, John ends pretty much every line he says to Bob with Bob.
That's what I was about to say. It felt like it happened in real life. Like niggas was in the car like, oh fuck. Like this nigga really just won. What are we gonna do?
Bobby, stop asking so many questions, Bob. And he ends up saying Bob or Bobby way more than Bob ever says his own name in this movie. John calls Ava a SHIELD reject on the run from 15 nations. Yes, after the quantum tech accident that killed her father, Elias Starr, Ava Starr was taken in by Bill Foster and made a SHIELD operative before she went rogue. John
What the fuck?
Describes Taskmaster as having destroyed half of Budapest, and Yelena says, don't talk about that one. Yelena says this out of respect for a former fellow Widow agent who was stuck under mind control from Ivan Dreykov, but talking about anything in Budapest in the MCU kind of reminds us of this line in 2012's Avengers.
Yeah.
Just like Budapest all over again.
You and I remember Budapest very differently.
Bro.
John claims he was the official Captain America, and Yelena's like, yeah, for 2 seconds. And Ava reminds us how he publicly killed an innocent man in the street. And John replies, define innocent. They're referring to the Flag Smasher who, in episode 4 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, killed John's friend, Lamar Hoskins, after which John crushed him to death with the Captain America shield.
Oh, fuck him, bro. Blood for blood. Eye for an eye. Fuck that nigga. What the fuck? I'm supposed to care? He's racist. He's clearly racist.
Smearing it with the guy's blood, and that led to John getting dishonored.
Nah, that's a damn. God damn. Nah, that nigga cannot be Captain America. I ain't never seen Captain America look like that. No matter how mad Cap ever got, I ain't never seen this nigga make his face, bro.
John crushed him to death with the Captain America shield, smearing it with the guy's blood.
This is hard though. Fuck it. Sometimes you got to get blood on the shield. Nah, I respect you, bro. I fuck with you.
And that led to John getting dishonorably discharged and recruited by Val. John also says he has a loving wife and son, referring to his wife Olivia, whom we did meet in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But, John's shame memory later reveals that he is definitely not in a loving situation with his wife. The red lights turn on as the incinerator warms up and they look for the
I was like, damn, bro. I was like, damn, pick up your baby, bro. Like, damn.
power source of the frequency device that traps Ghost in this room, and they pry open the panel to defuse it, and John barges in with a shield saying, "On your left," showing that the favorite salute between the other Caps, Steve and Sam, is something that John has fanboyed out over as well.
Don't say it. Don't you say it.
On your left.
Come on!
The goats.
On your left.
The
Ava
goats.
gets the door open at the last second.
Legend.
And jumping out to avoid the fire, Yelena ends up touching Bob's hand.
Hey, yo!
Into the void for this shame memory. Violet McGraw returns to the 2021 Black Widow film as a young Yelena, a few years into her Red Room training, in some kind of test to lure out another trainee, Anya, into the snowy woods during lunchtime. And then this man comes out to shoot Anya. To be honest, I'm not really sure what the lesson was here. Don't go wandering off, or if a fellow widow gets lost, leave her behind. Don't go looking for her. Or is it just being in the Red Room's terrible? But the book that Anya drops reads this. This is Sni Gurushka, which refers to the snow maiden of Russian folklore, the granddaughter and helper of Ded Moroz, the Russian Santa Claus, or Father Frost. The
There's
snow
a
maiden
Russian
began
Santa
as a
Claus?
Novi god character from Russian fairy tales, one about a peasant couple with no children, and then one day a snow sculpture miraculously came to light to become their adopted daughter, and Sni Gurushka brought so much joy to her parents, but didn't live long because she was challenged by the village children to jump over a bonfire, and she melted. Earlier in this film, Yelena
The fuck wrong with them kids?
dismissed fairy tales to jump over a bonfire, and she melted. Earlier in this film,
I like this look too. Fire.
Yelena dismissed fairy tales to Alexei, maybe because she feels like the Snigurushka who melted before she could bring any real joy to anyone.
Man, you
Or maybe
pushing
this
it, man.
reflects how she chose to be the goalie of the Thunderbolts soccer team, the kind of sacrificial figure who jumps on the grenade. I also enjoy how this movie sort of makes Alexei the Russian Santa Claus, dressed in red and white, with a big old beard, driving a kind of sleigh, who is even called Santa by Val later in the movie.
Who is this old Santa?
Val's plan is to use a strike team to take out Yelena and the rest, and it's overheard by her limo driver, Alexei, who will from here on out spend the next several hours in a very long road trip out west to Utah. Thank God he's a slob with junk food everywhere, because he's gonna need that big gulp cup.
Yuck.
John slams Bob against the wall, and for a moment, Bob's eyes glow a pale gray as the void begins to peek out. I like this detail because while the void is mostly marked by shadow,
No, please take it with every
the
subscription.
eyes do emit a pale gray glow. Yelena encourages Bob, who wants to stay put even if it means his death, and she says she gets hating herself, but after a while that darkness becomes alluring and becomes, and Bob finishes, a void. And Yelena says what she does with that void is to shove it way down. Bucky reads Congressman
that shit was
Gary's
funny.
packet, spilling a chili dog on it and on his arm.
shove
Why
it-
does Bucky
shove
eat
it way
chili
down.
dogs? I think he's remembering his great times at Coney Island with his buddy Skinny Steve, and how they probably puked out chili dogs while riding the Cyclone roller coaster. But he washes his vibranium arm in the dishwasher. Yes, he somehow got it back after Rocket and Nebula had it in the Guardians Holiday Special. And then he pops the vibranium arm back arm and rotates it, similar to what he does when he has to put it back on in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier after the Dora Milaje 5-point finger palm took it off. Mel calls and remembers being in high school when the Battle of New York happened. Bucky says he was like 90, and there's that age again for never aging superheroes.
Disney brought him back. They're gonna make him do this till he's 90.
Mel
See, I feel like they were I feel like
again
they
for never aging superheroes.
Disney brought
Oh.
him back. They're gonna make him do this till he's 90.
Mel tells Bucky to track his phone, which I think this scene establishes to show how Bucky knows to go to the Utah desert and how he knows to drive them back to Avengers Tower in New York City. The crew gets into the elevator shaft and John tries to leap up, but for a moment, he disappears into that inky darkness, and I think it's another visual example of a character just going into a void shadow. They ask Ava if she can phase shift up the walls, but she says she needs to know where she's going and can only hold it for a minute. And it's similar to the logic Alan Cummings' Nightcrawler gave when they were trapped in a base in X2.
I have to be able to see where I'm going. Otherwise, I could wind up inside a wall.
Isn't it great that we're gonna get that guy back in Avengers Doomsday? Bob proposes they inch up the shaft, back to back to back to back, and from above and below, they form the shape of an asterisk,
This shit was
which
funny.
is just fun. Remember, Val said that this vault was a mile down, so that's
I
gonna
like
be
this
a
scene.
long way to inch back up. Probably about as long as it's gonna take Alexei to drive out to Utah. Mel shares with Val Bob's personnel records, and on this screen, you can actually see some interesting details. Reynolds,
How the
Robert,
fuck can you
biography,
see
earliest
anything
available
on that?
hospital hospital records indicate Robert Bob Reynolds was a victim of domestic abuse throughout his childhood. There are no records of criminal charges filed in relation to these reports. Following a car accident, Reynolds was addicted to orally administered morphine during middle school, but was able to finish 8th grade before ultimately dropping out less than a year into high school. He has a history of drug-related arrests for nonviolent crimes, including breaking and entering, larceny, and burglary. And it lists his hometown as Sarasota Springs, Florida, and we see Bob's mugshot from when he would have been a teenager. I don't know
Why
many
would
people from Sarasota Springs, but I can tell you, a lot of people are addicted to meth.
This shit's still not over, brother. Why would it be? It's a whole breakdown of the whole movie, dude.
The crew realizes they have no good way to get from their current position to the upper level. Bob mutters to himself, always making things worse. This, we will later see, is what his mom would say to him when he would try to intervene when the dad was abusing her. John snatches Yelena's baton and makes an executive decision, pushing off, dooming all of them to die, but Yelena instinctively latches her cable to Bob, who sneezes. When Bob and John touch hands, John is taken to his shame memory, a scene that really struck me as a parent who has occasionally found myself doom scrolling while I was with my kid. John reads an article that uses a photo of John Walker from the end of the first episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier when he was first given the shield. And this article reads, Fall of a Hero, the John Walker story. Few have fallen further from grace than the putative heir to the mantle of Captain America, John Walker. Not long ago, Walker...
See, that's what's fire, chat. Having a kid and like a family that is not really in the light, so you can have your own personal life. Respect, bruh. Respect, because I didn't even know he had a kid, bro.
Was thrust into the public consciousness with all the fanfare Washington could muster. And we see a story by Rory Bruin, and Rory Bruin is an art director on this movie. He previously worked on Christopher Nolan's Tenet. The story of what went wrong starts long before his unveiling just a few short years ago. While no one could doubt that the boots of Steve Rogers were big ones to fill by any man's standards, Walker did seem to fit the bill, a decorated combat veteran from the Army Rangers, and then it gets cut off. When John comes out of this shame vision, he turns back to look down the deep pit of the elevator shaft as if he kind of looks ready to jump, or at least considering it for a beat too long, like Yelena's self-destructive leap that opened this movie. Bob tells him that when he was younger, he worked a summer job as a meth-addicted sign-twirling chicken, setting up the crazy moment in one of his void shame rooms. Later, Val and her commander, Holt, send in a strike team. Yelena and Bob have another private moment where he reveals he took the medical trial with Ox to try to make something better of himself, saying that he had always had these episodes since he was a kid, with a high and then a big low, followed by a blank. And later, we can infer that these might have started by witnessing his father's abuse, but it's just murky enough to imply that the void might have always existed in him. Yelena fights through the strike team, tying Bob to herself with a fire hose to keep him from helping. It's kind of sets up how these two will be tethered together around the neck in Bob's attic in the void later, and how at the end of the movie, Yelena just knows that because the void was never purely extracted from him, she's just gonna have to stay close to him. Yelena directs Bob's gun to fire at John.
Where are you?
They get out dressed as strike team soldiers, and when they get stopped at the checkpoint, Wyatt Russell gets the biggest laugh from me when the gate guard again orders him to identify himself, and he just goes, no. Bob creates a diversion and gets shot, but he gets back to his feet.
No,
his
nigga.
organs are shredded, and those aren't the only thing that's shredded. I mean, damn, dude, it's only one shot in the movie. But hey, if Marvel Studios gives you some fitness trainers and puts you on a nutrition plan, you can't say no. The void creeps into Bob's eye.
I mean, I feel like they got him like that for a reason, bro. I feel like they got him like that for a reason, which means he might be the one, bro. He might be the one in the future movies to really, lay some hands on a homie.
And Son Lux's strings work into a frenzy, leading Bob to blast up into the clouds, then come thundering back down to Earth, landing in a huge shockwave. Yelena shows John and Ava the paperwork from the lab that explains.
I let out an audible gasp in the theater seeing that, not gonna lie. What?
Bob was a successful case of Project
What?
Sentry. Ava reads the power of 1,000 exploding suns and the golden guardian of good. They actually changed it to 1,000 exploding suns instead of 1,000,000 as it is in the comics. But in the Sentry comics, newspapers do call him the golden guardian of good. And we also see the quote, he will stand for humanity's hope, which is a line about Sentry from New Avengers number 9.
Who the fuck
in
is
the
that?
comics, Sentry was part of the super soldier program, given a serum 1,000 times stronger than what Steve Rogers got. So it sounds like the Ox group was continuing the legacy of trying to use a new serum cocktail to create this government-controlled human weapon, but just because Bob Reynolds was so unstable from an early age, it amplified something very dark about him, a certain insecure darkness, a shame demon that is known as the Void. Ava asks Yelena if she knew Antonia, and Yelena says yes, she had a tough life, and she killed a lot of people, and then she got killed. Yelena did not have that much time getting to know Antonia Dreykov after Natasha gave Taskmaster the anti-brainwash antidote, but really, I just think Yelena was just so conditioned by the Red Room to feel hardly anything when another widow were to die. I think Natasha was really the one exception to that. Alexi's red
I'm not gonna lie.
pulls up.
I don't even remember shit about her.
Oh no.
This shit was funny.
It's coming right at us.
Who is that? It's no one. Oh god.
Yelena! It's your dad! Don't go in the vault! Valentina's gonna burn your life!
Oh my god. Hearing Alexi screaming, "It's your dad!" It's just so wholesome because this is what Alexi would be doing at her soccer games, making her feel even more embarrassed than Mandy, the girl who pooped on the field. Alexi compliments the team Yelena has put together, noticing that the light inside her has grown brighter. John sarcastically says, "Yeah, go Thunderbolts." And Alexi thinks that she genuinely named them after the Pee Wee Soccer Club. Alexi remembers that they were sponsored by Dimitri's Elite Industrial Lighting and Electrical, not Shane's Tire Shop. But I just think it's clear that Alexi's favorite business in their Ohio town was some Russian buddy of his. Alexi tells him this team has the power to be on the Wheaties box. Since Alexi was an 80s Russian hero, he likely would have been jealous of American athletes and celebrities who got to be on boxes of cereal. Then an ox convoy.
Yeah, he was so thirsty to start a group, bro.
It catches up and Alexi hits the gas, but it tops out at 54 miles per hour. And we see this limo has over 98,000 miles on it, which is way higher than a novelty ride service within a city area should have on it. Alexi activates his defensive measures, which just turn on party lights and fog, and Genuine's pony jump on it. It's similar to the gag in Thor Ragnarok when they're escaping Sakaar on the Grandmaster's pleasure yacht.
It's my birthday! It's my
Alexi swigs vodka and makes a Molotov cocktail that hits the armored truck and
first time message. These niggas gonna get clapped by Doom. Yo, I'm not gonna lie. That's why I'm like, yo, I don't know what the fuck they plan on doing. Like, they gonna have to recruit some people. Because these niggas was losing to a fucking shadow. To be fair, it was Sentry. And it took them everything. It took all of them to lift a piece of cement from hitting the ground, from crushing somebody. It took literally all of them, bro.
And then immediately goes out. So Yelena has to lean out the window and shoot, and one of the armored trucks blows up and flips, but it wasn't her gun, it was Bucky!
Is that Bucky?
Actually, in my favorite interview clip ever, Florence Pugh describes the take of Wyatt Russell.
We did a take where Wyatt turned around and went, Bucky! Because he just looked so cool.
Bucky rides up, taking out these trucks with the same explosive discs that we saw him use on Nick Fury in 2014's Captain America the Winter Soldier. And the way Bucky rides up through that dust and then grabs the shotgun and he flips it around.
Terminator.
It's totally an homage to the Terminator in the chase scene in T2 Judgment Day. Sebastian Stan even confirmed that while shooting this sequence, he was listening to the T2 soundtrack obsessively. Bucky shoots out the cable hook, lets it run,
look badass,
and then
though.
breaks, grabs the hook with his vibranium
This was
arm,
so hard.
and then punches the ground, completely flipping the truck.
Oh
And
my
I think This
gosh.
is one of my favorite moves I've ever seen in an MCU movie. It's so sick. And I love that even the Thunderbolts seem to recognize this from a meta awareness. They can't help but cheer. Even John Walker, who has fought alongside Bucky before. Val and Mel return to the Watchtower. The existing structure of Avengers Tower is still there, even with the additional penthouse structure beyond the
Damn, the Avengers Tower, bruh.
Avengers Age of Ultron. But Ox has now built over it a new black facade that, if it were ever completed, would change its silhouette in the skyline, which makes it overall look like the comic depictions in which Sentry's hidden Watchtower was kind of enveloping Avengers Tower. Val meets with Bob and places his S belt buckle on the table. She brings up his family history and touches his hand, and then we're taken to Valentina's
She ain't
memory,
shit,
the
bruh.
day when, as a girl in Italy, she accidentally told a man in town where she and her father lived, and then that man showed up to their home and killed her father in front of her. Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, known as the Contessa in earlier years of the comics, first appeared in 1968's Strange Tales run as a companion to Nick Fury, and we learned she was born in Italy and her parents were actually killed for aiding in some unspecified resistance movement. So I assume her father's involvement in that resistance is what got him killed in this scene, but Italy was under a fascist rule during World War II, but
God
Valentina
damn.
would not have been a kid kid during that point in history. She was definitely born after it. So it's not really clear why her father was killed from the scene, but I'm assuming the killer was someone outside of the law, which is why Valentina is so obsessed with world security and having the strongest weapons now. When Mel talks to Val, the necklace she's been wearing all movie really stands out in the scene. Many have likened Mel's necklace with the Songbird icon. Songbird, Melissa Gold, or Screamin' Mimi, was part of the original Thunderbolts lineup when it was created by Baron Zemo. To be clear, that's not the Thunderbolts era that this movie is focusing on. This movie, I would say, is adapting something closer to the Dark Reign era, mixed with Sentry's comic arcs, and the name Thunderbolts is really just a coincidence with it being the nickname of Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. That connection is not really drawn in this movie. Bucky restrains Alexei, Ava, Yelena, and John, and he puts Ghost in the Chitauri handcuffs that we saw earlier, clearly to keep her from phasing away. And again, I'm not sure if these are the same ones they put on Loki, but I think they have the same alien technology that prevents teleportation out of them, since Loki is able to use sorcery tricks of like duplication casting and a similar type of teleportation. That's not exactly the same thing, but you can imagine there would be certain technology
I miss
that would just
Loki,
keep
man.
slippery people like this restrained. Bucky realizes he has
He's still alive, right?
team of heroes who actually.
Oh wait. Wait, yeah. Wait, hold on. I'm confused because it's been a minute. It's been a minute because that nigga's neck got snapped in that one movie. But what the fuck happened?
Actually can help stop Val in New York City after his call with Mel.
I'm not watching the show, bro. I already watched the first season. I just asked the question, man. Just answer the shit. Just answer the question, dude.
And he gives a pretty great speech to get them into it.
Look, I've been where you are. The past doesn't go away, so you can either live with it forever.
Different low key. Boom. Easy.
Or you can do something about it.
Alexei has dreamed of this moment to have a true Avengers team. So they get to New York, and this city shows no signs of the police state or curfew imposed by Mayor Fisk that it's supposed to be under as of the season 1 finale of Daredevil Born Again. But I think we're finding that there is just a clearer and clearer line between Marvel Studios and Marvel Television. John, Yelena, and Ava right in the back.
What about your hat?
Keep it that way.
The hat. The helmet?
Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
It's like cool, right? You like it?
Do you like the hat?
Yeah, I think the hat's pretty sweet.
Then cool.
I feel like these comments about his little hat are why John changes his headgear when they rebrand into the new Avengers in the post-credit scene. Alexei asks Bucky,
What kind of super serum did you get?
I don't know, regular. Hydra.
Hydra. Oh, fancy. Mine was Soviet recreation, but it's still good, you know. We are the same, you and me.
Well,
I mean, we are different, but we are the same.
remember that even though Hydra had a facility in Siberia, Hydra was technically a bigger network and a separate organization than the normal Russian government. So while the Russians, like the Americans, were all trying to recreate the super soldier serum in different and various diluted ways, Hydra had its own successful program that produced the Winter Soldier, actually the Winter Soldiers, as there were many of them, and ultimately that cocktail is what led to the batch that we saw in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Bucky's plan is to just ram this truck into the lobby of the Watchtower. When he jumps out, he rips off the car door and uses it as a shield, recreating the first time his buddy Steve used a makeshift shield in 2011's Captain America: The First Avenger. The Thunderbolts beat the crap out of these Ox Guards, and I just like how right outside this on the street is the same area where the 2012 Avengers fought the Chitauri, with that same bridge level where Natasha and Steve fought in the later stages of that battle. In fact, on that bridge, we know from the Hawkeye series, is a plaque that commemorates those original 6.
That's
Val invites them up the
fire.
elevator, and she pours a drink from the bar, which is the same bar set that Tony Stark had in the 2012 Avengers movie. Val says, "Isn't it crazy to think of all the monumental fights that happened exactly where you're standing?" Indeed, Tony Stark's face-off with Loki was right here. The Avengers fought Ultron's first form right here. And in the time heist in Endgame, the future Avengers came back to this location to steal the Tesseract and the Scepter. And speaking of that Scepter, it is back on display in the background of this room. We also see another Chitauri gun, and I might be wrong, but I think we see Coulson's Destroyer Armor prototype gun.
Yo,
in
thank you for the
these display
resub. I appreciate
cases.
you, my boy.
Val taunts them, calling John a junior varsity captain.
Bro, you know how much shit they gotta like write down and then go back and watch to make sure they have everything line up with the other movies that they did? Holy shit.
Captain America, and I think he takes more offense to just junior varsity because we know he played on a football team and probably was varsity. She says Bucky has survived less than half a congressional term. I suppose she assumes he's gonna die or at least have to resign. And she calls Alexei an old Santa, but really she's just trying to get them to be violent with her to incite Sentry to overreact because she invites Bob down.
Yeah,
and he's got a new
continuity.
look as Sentry. And damn, it's pretty comic accurate, down to the hair. This casting was great. The golden suit he wears actually looks like it's made of the same fabric that they used on Anthony Starr as Homelander in The Boys. And I don't think that was an accident, because Sentry is the same kind of lab-grown, perfect superhero with a hair
I like this version of him.
balance. Val says that he's stronger than
So
all the Avengers
badass.
rolled into one, and soon he'll be known as Earth's Mightiest Hero, taking the Avengers' classic moniker of Earth's Mightiest Heroes and making it singular. Val orders Sentry to take down this violent group of criminals, as she calls them. It leads to a big fight. Yelena tries to back out.
Bro
but
was
it's
like,
too
I'm a
late.
god,
Sentry
bro.
throws Alexei out the window and then he yanks him back into the bar. Sentry folds John's shield into a taco. Bucky tries
The
to stab him,
disrespect.
and Bucky even does his signature badass move of dropping the knife from one hand to the other that we saw in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, but it fails, and Sentry punches him up and then flies to catch him to hit him again. He sees Ghost phasing around him, and then No Look grabs her throat, and for a second I thought he was gonna go Omni-Man on her. Then I remembered that he's just pulling his punches to try not to kill them. He catches Bucky's punch and then superheats the arm. And
I'm about to say he could definitely kill all of them
But Bob
easily.
holds back. The Thunderbolts regroup outside on the sidewalk. Yelena in particular insults the others, saying, "I suck, I'm terrible, we're all terrible." And in this moment, there's an extra as a New Yorker passing her on the sidewalk and gives her the funniest look, like extra of the year right here. Bob argues with Val on whether he should take orders from her, since if he's more powerful than the Avengers and they include a god, referring to Thor, then that makes him a god as well. This isn't really Bob talking, it's the Void. So that is what is choking Val, so that Mel has to hit the kill switch. As they leave though, the shadows of the floor absorb into his body and he
Fucking kill
turns dark.
switch,
And
of course.
tiny white eyes. I love this visual choice because it does remind us of how the Void's eyes look in certain comics, but adapted on screen and live action, I love the choice to make his eye holes just tiny little pinpricks. Like the Void, it doesn't want to emit any light whatsoever. And I'm reminded of the 1990 film Ghost, when those rotoscope shadow demons would just show up to drag souls to hell, how they would have eyes for just a few frames and discernible faces with tiny little eye holes of light. Also, director of the Annabelle sequels and Shazam movies, David F. Sandberg uses this technique in his horror work, notably in his feature version of Lights Out. You see this a lot in creepypasta art because it plays on two innate visual fears: a shadowy shape and our anxiety over the unknown, and our paranoia over being watched by something we can't really make out, like seeing a predator's eyes reflecting back to us from the darkness. Florence Pugh pours her heart into Yelena's confession to Alexei, how she feels so alone, how she's lost her sister,
Woke bullshit.
her father, and how she has so many things
Yo,
she feels shame over. And
Zyvira,
like
thank you for the
John
sub.
Walker's doom scrolling with his phone, we hear another example of how these things are psychologically killing us. Yelena says, "All I do is sit and look at my phone and think about all the terrible things that I've done, and then I go to work and I drink and I go home to no one and I sit and I think about all the terrible things that I've done again." And she needs Alexei to cut off this spiral. And I mean, isn't that the death spiral we often find ourselves in? It's a kind of emotional hard truth and specificity that we don't normally hear in Marvel movies, and I loved this moment. Alexei reassures her that she was the light that
Yeah, that was a good ass scene.
room, and that as a kid she wanted to be the goalie on the Thunderbolts soccer team so that she could be the one everyone relies on when they make mistakes. Yes, even Poopy Pants Mandy. Now, the way Dark,
Cause it's like, and that's another thing, like, and that's kind of a big reason why this movie, if people didn't like it or why they didn't like it, because they're not the Avengers. They're not even really superheroes. So it's like when she's speaking like that and saying all these things, it's like the character is saying it in that moment, but it's also speaking to the audience of like how the audience is making them feel. It's like, God damn, like that's why I really fucked with it. I was like, damn, this shit is like, it's kind of like layers to this shit, bro. Like she acting, but she's saying like, damn, when am I gonna be enough, bro? Like, fuck, I can't fly, bitch. Like, I got a gun and I can kick people's ass. Like, what more do you want from me? I'm trying my best with what I got, bitch. We the Thunderbolts.
Sentry enters this scene is very unsettling. It really just starts with people behind Yelena.
That's when it clicked. I was like, ooh, this is fire. I love what they doing with this movie, bro. It's like the things that they were saying in the character, as characters were saying something, they're also speaking to the audience like, yo, get off my dick. I get it, my nigga. We're not them. We're not trying to be them, bro.
In the background of the previous scene, just frozen, looking up. And as more and more civilians do the same, we see his dark silhouetted form just floating.
This was fire.
Silently, waiting for people to realize he's there. The first Ox soldier who fires on him, we hear the Void say, "Are you tired of fighting? Here, let me help you." Like he sincerely believes that he is freeing them from their pain. And I love how they manipulate Lewis Pullman's voice for this. Like we're hearing two versions of his voice layered on top of each other.
Yeah, I'm playing Expedition after this. We're gonna beat the game. I cannot wait to play that.
And when he voids these people, he flattens them into a shadow.
This shit was
Director
fire.
Jay Schreier confirmed to Collider's Perry Nemiroff that the look of this flat shadow was inspired by the blast shadows from victims of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Crazy.
That definitely came from images from Hiroshima and those kind of shadows.
Actually, he went into some really cool detail of how they were able to get
Fuck you mean not beating it? Now I can't wait to beat it, bitch. And why is your name Wet Nut?
This effect to look so great.
It's a frame and a half of animation between when they disappear and when they become a shadow. And anything longer than that starts to feel like you're getting into kind of CG vapor territory. So it has to be quick. You almost feel exposed because it seems so simple. And then there's other things about it where...
Oh my gosh, I literally forgot. Yo, Pretty and Tired, thank you for the resubscription. I literally forgot. I have... Because Danielle's still out of town, so I can't play it after. I can't play it after this. I gotta go pick up Demir. Oh, shit. All right, I gotta hurry up and finish this.
Like, because it doesn't happen so often in the movie, like the camera needs to be more or less in line.
I know, chat. I can't. I gotta work with what I, work with what I got, bro. I forgot. I gotta get them.
And almost like an eclipse, like with where the voiding is happening and where the shadow goes, that if you look at it from a profile perspective, it doesn't really work because it's such a short effect.
I love to hear Schreier talk.
Tomorrow, though. Danielle comes back tomorrow. I'm locking the fuck in. Yo, not global. Not global.
Thank you, Perry, for asking about this. Like, you could see this creative thought playing out on screen, and it's why the voiding is so scary.
When he hit that little girl with it, I was like, oh shit.
Exactly, with little warning, and because it happens toward us or away from us, never in profile, it's like we are witnessing an eclipse and light is being denied to us, and we feel like it's both an innate terror of being draped in shadow.
But when he did it to that little girl, I was like, oh yeah, everyone's for sure coming back.
Extensions of the void's fingers reaching out toward you. Holt and his helicopter pilot are among the first to get voided, resulting in a crash into the scaffolding and raining debris. So the Thunderbolts stray into action. Yelena sees a...
That's why I cannot wait, because it's still kind of the same thing in this, where something bad happens, but then like the day saved and stuff like that. But that's why I cannot wait for this Fantastic Four, and I definitely cannot wait until fucking Doomsday. And I'm really, really curious of what the fuck is going to go on with Spider-Man, because we ain't heard nothing about this nigga.
Crashing truck and calls Dad, and she jumps to Alexei, who springboard launches her toward the truck to save someone. This is the same move her sister Natasha did with Alexei's American counterpart.
No way.
Toward the truck to save someone. This is the same move her sister Natasha did with Alexei's American counterpart Steve Rogers in this same location in the Battle of New York in the 2012 Avengers film, and I loved seeing this awesome assist coming back. The truck hits a news van, sending it rolling into two more people, and Bucky jumps in using his arm to bounce the truck out of harm's way, and when the second helicopter crashes, Ghost phases in to push a guy out of the way, phasing out to let the fiery wreckage move through her. And as one huge piece of rubble nearly crushes a woman, John redeems his selfish move in the elevator shaft earlier when he freed the pressure against his back to now be the one hero using that same back to push against the rubble, despite not being able to hold it alone. And now the other Thunderbolts come to his aid. And the applause they get isn't just for these individual saves, but I think the people around are just happy to see them working together on something. Like they are just inspired to see heroes cooperating in addition to just saving people. Val clocks this and you can see her already getting ideas here. Alexei saves a little girl in overalls, which must feel like a big win for a girl dad like him, but then immediately, poof, voided. Them kids. The void voids person after person at random, even ones fleeing away from him, and their shadows spread and join together in a collective darkness. Yelena walks toward this darkness, instinctively knowing that she has to join Bob in this darkness in order to help him. While everyone else was trying to attack Bob, she was always the one trying to save him. Yelena again wakes up in the void shame room of her memory of getting Anya killed, but now she runs into a wall of a painted backdrop. This is a literal room, an enclosed set, like the Truman Show, a presentation of a reality, one that you were meant to loop through and not escape. This choice is something Jake Schreier credited to production designer Grace Yoon, who worked with him on Beef and the horror film Hereditary.
Okay, Grace,
wanted the surreal elements of this movie to feel practical. It's supposed to feel like a set, not an actual forest, because it's not a reality. It's the way that your mind records it as like a movie. But Yelena smashes through the set wall into another memory that's oriented 90 degrees to the forest, and when she looks back through the hole, she sees the forest through it, and young Yelena, Anya, and that man are all staring at her, which is very creepy. But the fact that this new room feels practically linked to the forest room is something that also might seem familiar from Eternal Sunshine in the Spotless Mind, where director Michel Gondry and writer Charlie Kaufman designed a memoryscape where disconnected rooms were physically connected and transitioned through using lighting shifts. Now Yelena finds herself in another shame room, a red room memory of the girls having to rapidly assemble guns. Yelena wins and gets to stand aside and watch while the woman whips the hands of the slower girls. Adult Yelena holds her younger self to block her from seeing this, but then Yelena sees Bob in his attic through the mirror, but when she crashes through it, she just sees another version of herself leaning against a bathtub, drunk and passed out. This alternate self jump scares, grabbing her arm and then forcing her to drink too. Yelena looks through another mirror and sees Bob, and we get this really cool practical transition done mostly just through lighting and shifting set walls into Bob's attic. We should also remember that this isn't the first time Yelena has looked through a bathroom mirror above a sink and experienced a surreal transition. Hawkeye showed Yelena's blipping from Thanos' snap from her point of view as she looked into a bathroom mirror and she dusted out of and then back into reality 5 years later as that bathroom decor shifted around her. So Yelena is really destined to be the person to make this metaphysical journey.
What the
Yelena
fuck?
finds Bob dressed in his childhood clothes, fiddling with a Rubik's Cube as he witnesses his father abusing his mom downstairs. Yelena changes her earlier advice, saying that we can't just stuff this stuff down and bury our darkness, that it has to be something that we work through together. And she tells Bob that she knows this is possible because she has already felt this lighter burden just by being with him. The void makes the attic start attacking them both. The walls bend around Yelena like the effect in Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, and the curtain chokes them. The others arrive, Ghost slices the curtain, Bucky and John punch away debris, and Alexei just pointlessly rips a pillow open. We don't see what the shame rooms looked like for the other characters like Alexei, Ava, or Bucky. Bucky just jokes that he's had a great past, so it went great. We saw quite a few of his shame flashbacks in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier as he went on his apology tour.
Can I play Expedition 33 on Twitch and not Patreon tomorrow? I mean, I want to finish it though, like tomorrow and then post it tomorrow. But like, if I wait to stream it, then it's gonna be at night, and then I have to post it the next day.
But I assume the 1991 killing of Tony Stark's parents were one of those rooms for him. Meanwhile,
I was just gonna play it like off stream, like, and then like, I don't know. Okay, maybe though. Maybe I'll just do it tomorrow then.
Outside, the void takes over the whole city. We see a workplace where the shadow voids the onlookers, but also drapes down over the light fixtures and blacks out the computer screens. In a wide shot, the shadow starts to work its way up Freedom Tower, but doesn't completely engulf it. We cut away before it does. Maybe it's just too sad to see that one.
Yo, shout out to this, oh my God, 62-month resub. Ken, appreciate you, bro.
Get fully harmed in any way. Back in the void, John bashes Bob's abusive dad in the face, and they fall down to an outdoor street corner with an obviously painted backdrop. And I love this effect, especially since we learned that Bob is remembering this as being high on meth at the time. This is a memory Bob hinted at earlier when he was addicted to meth and working as a spinny sign chicken for, we see on the sign, Alf.
Things are kind of pointless right now. Don't know what is going on. Feels like an endless spiral. Are you quoting something? Yo, watch this movie. It'll help you. It'll speak to you, bro.
Fredo's bail bond.
Watch this movie. It'll speak to you, twin.
Bucky knocks out this chicken, and then they loop back to the Malaysian lab where this all began for Bob. Bob says that he was looking for more drugs in Southeast Asia until some guy approached him for a medical study, which ended up being Ox experimenting on addicts like him. And it works for Bob, releasing the void.
Fat
the void
Fox,
now
65
appears,
months, I see you.
restraining the others as he taunts Bob into attacking him. They fight, and the void initially knocks him down and says, "We will always be alone." We see the others stretch away from Bob, but Bob tackles the void.
He was dead ass
punching
a
him,
school
and the
shooter,
void
bro.
laughs, and in addition to his eyes, we can now make out pale white teeth.
I'm surprised he didn't mention the fact that they had the deadbeat dad knock out Bob's abusive dad.
They did. They said he knocked him out.
Fighting the void like this is only helping the darkness spread into Bob's body, so Yelena breaks free and leaps over to Bob to hold him back. The others join in a group hug, and now we see why Jake Schreier compared this to Toy Story 3. The refusal to fight the void is what repels the darkness. They need to physically hold each other to keep that darkness away. So the void releases its clutches from them and from the whole city. And
Chat, they literally won with the power of friendship. Now, if I would have just got like the script for that, if I would have just got told that, I'd have been like, what? But then it's like you watch the movie and they're the closest people. They are the closest to like regular humans than they're closer to regular humans than the Avengers, because they really got like all superpowers and all this extra shit. So it's like for them to win with a human technique, it's kind of like, I don't know, bro. It's kind of like poetry. It's kind of like some poetry to it, all right? And I fuck with it in this film here. I fuck with it in this film, all right? I don't want to see that. I don't want to see them talking about that shit in Doomsday and all that other bullshit, okay? I'm not saying I want to see more of that, but for this moment here, in this movie Thunderbolts, it had a whole different tone to it that felt more real than fighting some big alien that's invading Earth. And that's why I fucked with it, because it didn't feel like I'm watching yet again another Marvel movie. It just felt like I was watching a good ass movie with cool, unique characters that I fucked with. And, you know, there just happens to be like superhero aspects around it and shit like that.
And that includes the little girl in overalls. But we have to ask, what kind of shame room did that girl go down into? Did she poop her pants during a soccer game? Afterwards, Bob has no memory of what they just went through, so his memory blackouts are still affecting him. The void is not gone. He's not fully healed. And I like this because that's just really how depression works. You know, unfortunately, you never fully get rid of the darkness. You just learn how to manage it. And now he just knows how to keep the void from taking over completely. The answer is just be friends with Yelena. Like, the movie does not answer where the darkness comes from, but it does teach us how to manage that darkness. To face it head on and not over aggressively fight it, but just really know that you're always gonna have it, but you're never fully alone, because that darkness is something we all experience. So is Sentry okay? We're gonna talk about that in this weekend's episode of The Sneak Peek. And actually, New Rockstar's just launched a new 4th channel called New Rockstar's Highlights, which is just gonna be a clips channel. We're gonna share our favorite clips from our longer podcast episodes, like The Sneak Peek and the soon to be returning Rumor Rundown. So if you wanna subscribe there, you can. Thank you. So they step up to Val to arrest her, but Val leads them through a barrier where we realize she tricked them into a press conference. Marvel ending their films and press conferences is just a device Kevin Feige loves to do to signal to us that this movie is the arrival of someone important, like Tony Stark at the end of Iron Man, Peter Parker at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming, T'Challa at the UN in the mid-credits scene of Black Panther, and now these new Avengers. I like how one of the microphones on the podium is WHIH, the MCU in-universe news service. So you know this is official. Yelena leans over to Val to say, "We own you now," and we end the film back in a close-up of Yelena taking a breath of relief as Alan Silvestri's Avengers theme plays over the score. Now, in yesterday's Ending Explain and post-credit video, I broke down the fun visuals in the closing credits using real-life periodicals as the new Avengers are questioned and mocked.
I love this. I love this, bro.
By the public and the media. One with the group rendered as Queen.
This was hard.
In a Bohemian Rhapsody pose on Rolling Stone. We see a version of Washington crossing the Delaware with the guinea pig on the bow. We see David Harbour referencing his own DC character in Creature Commandos Frankenstein as he hands a flower to the little girl he saved. Really, these final minutes work so well because, according to Jake Schreier, Kevin Feige knew that skeptical audiences might kind of roll their eyes at this lineup being called the New Avengers by Val. So they get ahead of that cynicism by mocking the New Avengers with these jokey media headlines and images, so that by the end of the sequence, we in the audience start to defend this lineup of goofballs from the snarky, cynical media. And when the Thunderbolts asterisk is torn away to the New Avengers title logo, we all cheer. And that takes us right into 2 great post-credit scenes, the second of which was directed by the Russo brothers and seamlessly assimilates the New Avengers into the same MCU of Avengers Doomsday as they become the welcome party to the Fantastic Four. So while overall the Thunderbolts film was an emotionally heavy—
Yo, when I seen that chip, I was like, oh damn. Like, we already kind of knew that their shit, like when we talked about it, when we watched like breakdowns, that the Fantastic Four universe was done and like they was gonna come to the MCU thingy thing. But seeing that, I was like, oh yeah, no, they're fucked. Oh yeah, no, they're fucked. And that shit was zooming too. They got the fuck out of there.
The exploration of mental health that got a lot of great character moments and laughs along the way. It does
Damn.
end with this additional layer of a familiar Avengers level crisis. And a few final details in the post-credit scene. The red star on Bucky's sleeve, in addition to recalling his red star on his original Winter Soldier arm, also has the segmented form of the star that we see on Sam Wilson's Captain America shield, which is just a nice detail. Also, the sponsors on Alexi's new Avengers tracksuit are all real-life brands who have done product integrations with Marvel Studios. You may remember Peloton as the product placement when President Ross was working out on Air Force One in Brave New World, and you gotta remember the crazy Tide commercials for that movie.
My question is, how the fuck does someone receive that much power like Sentry? I mean, bro, it's comics. It's kind of like anime where it's just like part of the story. Like they just need to get the story told so they can have like a cool ass hero.
And the book that Bob is reading is Rick Rubin's The Creative Act, A Way of Being, which shows that Bob is working on his mental health in whatever proactive way he can. I hope Bucky doesn't let this guy read Kierkegaard. It'll just bum him out and give him some wrong ideas about moral philosophy. And Yelena mentioning that they weren't looped in on the space crisis suggests that Nick Fury, head of Saber, might be giving his intel to Sam's Avengers, which I assume Carol Danvers is a part of. But I went into everything with the New Avengers and the Fantastic Four and Doomsday in yesterday's video, so go check that out. Whew.
Man. Man.
Love this movie. Comment down below with your thoughts and your favorite detail from this breakdown. And a special thanks to our YouTube members, Frederick Price, Jeremy Dunham, TDS on a Quest, Cameron, Marissa Miranda, Rick Denman, Smokey the Bear, and Sin City Monster, who all support us on the executive producer level. You can support us by hitting that join button down below.
Shout out to you, bro. W Video and also W Movie. Absolutely. I love this movie, man. I loved it. Just because it wasn't like the typical thing. And I think I want to say,
before you leave, don't forget to see these 2 trailers. And
I have to go. But look, tomorrow Danielle gets back and I will be able to do a longer stream. But yeah, I just liked, because it just felt like I was just seeing a good movie. And that's kind of what I went into thinking. I was like, okay, I'm not going to look at this as like another Marvel movie. I'm gonna look at this as like, this is just another movie I'm watching. Now, hopefully it's good and hopefully I'm interested. And luckily, not only was it good, I was actually back into the Marvel universe. So W Thunderbolts. I think what's next is Spider-Man. So, you know, hopefully that's good too. I mean, we haven't heard absolutely anything from him, so we'll see, bro. Thunderbolts. All right, chat. I gotta go. Oh no, Fantastic Four is next. Okay, bet. All right, chat. Love y'all.